I am obsessed with your background. This is the most fabulous gay setup I think I've
Oh,
ever
this
seen.
thing? This whole thing? Oh, thank you.
Oh, this is something. I love that. I I didn't know that you were also an artist. So I was doing my research as one does, and I saw like all the like cool mask and art designs, and I was like, this is an aesthetic. This is a vibe right here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pretty recent development for me because like I've always drawn. I just haven't been able to put it on the computer until I got my hands on an Apple Pencil and iPad. So it's
Yep.
like I've only now been able to put that stuff online.
That's
So,
awesome.
JP, I was just telling Alex how we know each other, really. It's not because you're from Oklahoma, but that was part of the connection after we realized it. But we were going to these meetings called convening meetings, and they were very helpful, I thought. I haven't gotten an invitation in several years, and I don't know if they're not doing them anymore. But, and so for several years, and then, JP, weren't you the one time I was texting you or Twitter messaging you in an airport, and you said, yeah, I think I'm across the way from you? Was that you?
Oh my gosh, I really have flushed so much of my life down the toilet that I don't remember. I don't, maybe, probably. um,
Okay. So I think that if it wasn't you, it was another young, cute boy.
That's so
know.
funny. Thank you. Yeah, it's like right before the pandemic happened, that's like such a different world from me even. So I'm like, what was I doing? What was my
Yeah.
life like? Who did I know?
Right. You look good.
Well, thank you. I'm
Well,
trying.
yeah. And I too love the background. How queer.
How queer.
Very appropriate.
Not as queer as your quilt, which I love. I love that it's a quilt. That's my favorite element of the whole thing, where it has that like patchwork to it.
My background.
Mm-hmm.
So
Lovely.
good that JP, like I had no idea that you were from Oklahoma, and literally, I went to college out in LA, and literally all my gay friends would retweet your shit all the time, and I was like, this guy's cool, and I followed you, and then like I saw you tweeted something about Brahms, and my mind was blown. I was like, oh, a gay got out of Oklahoma? What? I
And not
love
just
that.
from Oklahoma, but of Brahms' experience. I think that that's a really crucial element.
Oh, it really is. You know, you grew up in Lawton, right?
So I grew up in Comanche County, which is sort of between Lawton and Cache. So I spent a lot of my time in Cache, but Lawton is sort of the only thing anyone will recognize. So I usually just say Lawton.
Mm-hmm. And like, how did you escape? What was your ticket out of Oklahoma?
Oh, it was fully just writing. Even like in high school, it was writing. I went to Lawton High, which is it was kind of a rough school when I went. I don't know what it's like right now, but it had a very robust English department. So my mom was my English teacher in the ninth grade, and
Wow.
then we had a teacher named Doc Freeman. We called him Doc because he had a PhD, and he kind of pushed me to enter all these essay contests, which I did, and I started winning quite a few of them, and that was the first time I was able to actually like not just travel, but travel because of something I did, if that makes any sense. Because as a kid, that's like the most magic thing possible. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm on a plane, and I put myself on this plane because of something I wrote and did. So yeah, that was sort of my first taste of getting out, and then I took a blogging job in when was it? 2013, and I lived in DC for a year doing that. Then I moved to New York, and I got sort of involved in New York media. And a few years later, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Still have a lot of love for Oklahoma. I wish I could visit right now. It'd be hard, but I miss a lot of things about it.
Now, with your beginning writings, did you write about Oklahoma, or were you writing about just your queer experience?
Yeah, I've always found Oklahoma to be a really exciting subject. I know that not a lot of people would feel similar, but I feel that Oklahoma is actually very rich with context, and there's a lot going on. And I think it really helped me sort of create and build out my imagination, because I spent a lot of time wondering what other places were like. Oklahoma is such a great place to sort of sit and think and imagine the rest of the world. Because where I lived, like out in the country, it was very flat. We could sort of see the Wichita Mountains off in the distance, and Cache was a little ways away. And I spent a lot of time just imagining worlds and imagining things that I would come across in life. So it really helped me, not just with my writing, but like the poetic aspects of my writing, because I've always been interested in beauty. I've always been interested in, like, I don't know, that sort of really beautiful Oklahoma laziness that I put into everything. Like, laziness might be the wrong word, but it's got this like
Laid back.
sing-song, kind of quiet, peaceful thing to it that I really bake into everything I do because I love it so much. Yeah, I would say it really inspired me. And I do write a lot about my own experiences. I would like to think that I would do that regardless of wherever I'm from. You know, I write a lot about being Mexican American. I write a lot about being gay. I write a lot about where I grew up and everything. But I do feel lucky because I think Oklahoma is such an interesting canvas. And I think that, weirdly enough, this past year, people have started to agree a little bit more, because we had like the Oklahoma Broadway play happen. We had, of all things, she's not from Oklahoma, but I think Casey Musgraves really popularized the idea of like an accessible sort of cowboy yeehaw aesthetic that Oklahoma has going for it. And I think that I saw a lot of people reclaiming those visuals and sort of imagining like, oh yeah, what's going on in that part of the country. And so writing about Oklahoma was never easier for me because it was at this weird intersection of things where it's like, not only is it chic right now, but I actually had lived experience there. So I had a really good time, and I'm still having a really good time incorporating it into all my projects.
Mm. So it's real when you put on a cowboy hat in Brooklyn. You're
It's
not one of
real,
those
and
fake Brooklyn
I
guys.
wish people knew it was real, because the thing is, like, I had my first pair of cowboy boots. My gosh, I was stuffed into some when I was, before I could even remember anything. I was like 5, 6. My grandfather on my white side was a farmer, and he was getting honored at some sort of farmers event, and my dad put me into some cowboy boots to go there, and I hated that event. I remember it so vividly. It might be my first memory of life. It's like I'm in this cafeteria hall thing wearing cowboy boots surrounded by a bunch of, people I don't know, and they're all giving speeches about crops. I'm just like 5, and I'm like, I want to die.
Yeah, I noticed like when you move away from Oklahoma, it oddly becomes more a part of your identity because you don't realize because you're so embedded within it. Like,
Absolutely.
Right? And like the most creative people, I think, are coming from the places where nothing's going on, despite most creatives being on coastal cities, you know?
And I think we always have. I think if you look at the past, when it comes to literature, people can get a lot done writing from the middle of the country. And I think that a lot of really amazing writers and artists come from there. We just sort of end up in these, bigger cities. But yeah, I think it's really conducive to writing and really conducive to your imagination. And I'm really happy that I grew up there. And, whenever I hear someone bad mouthing it, I'm just like, you don't get to do that.
Oh, I get so defensive when people are like, oh, people from the Midwest are dumb. I'm like, hey, only I can say that.
Like, I get to do that, not you.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to just being a queer creative, there can be a lot going against you, especially when it comes to creating content for a larger audience that might not be familiar with LGBT issues. So, how do you, as a creative, stay true to your own queer identity while also making a living?
Yeah, I'm really lucky in that it's gotten so easy for me, because now I'm just so embedded with all these other LGBT creatives to the point where it's like they're all I really talk to. They're the people I read. They're the people I text. They're the people who, when I'm feeling bad, try to lift me up, and vice versa. And it's gotten to this point where it's almost become invisible to me. And that's such a rare thing to have. And I know it's a rare thing to have, because for a lot of people, including myself when I was younger, it was like such a huge thing. And burden is the wrong word, because it's such a vibrant, colorful, important thing to have. But there were times where it was sort of like, my gosh, I wish I didn't have to deal with this. Or I wish that things were a little bit easier. Or things were a little bit more accessible to me. And I tried to put myself back in those shoes quite a bit, because it's so easy for me here in Brooklyn to become jaded and sort of cringe at what I see as like more novel expressions of like, you know, LGBT community stuff, where I'm just like, oh, this is tacky. Aren't we past this? And I have to sort of check myself and be like, you didn't have this growing up. You didn't have this even just a few years ago. Let someone have that. Because it's no guarantee that you're going to find your people. So when I make things nowadays, I really do feel like, and this is a new phenomenon for me, and maybe it's only been the case for the past year or two, I feel like I'm just making things. I don't feel like I'm sitting down and being like, as a gay Latino, what do I have to say about this? Because I have done that in the past, because those were the channels that were available to me, especially when I was doing the op-ed circuit. Because op-eds and like essays for mainstream news outlets are usually so tied to identity and so tied to like what people will let you write about. And for me, I found it very easy to be like, well, I'm gay, I'm Latino, I'm from, you know, a rural community, let me write about this. And that's how I was able to establish my credentials to people who maybe otherwise wouldn't take a chance on me, because, you know, I wasn't born into connections. I didn't go to a super fancy school. I wasn't born into like a whole bunch of money. So it was like, those were the things available to me. I got very good at navigating them and using them to sort of like, you know, pitch myself. And that's something I had to do at the time. And I'm trying my best now to not look at my old stuff and be like, oh, you were being a cliche, or you were using your identities to get ahead. No, it's like, that's just what I had to do. So that's where I am right now. I'm very lucky, very privileged, and I try to remind myself as much as I possibly can.
No, I mean, as a writer, like, that's how you make ends meet, you know?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
it's the unfortunate reality of a lot of big publications, is that like they want to look at what makes us different, just because that's what gets the most headlines.
Yep.
So I started getting into your advice column pretty early on, and I was wondering, like, how do you as a creative keep that going, and do you have any tips for, you know, just young gay writers trying to get into this industry?
Yeah, so one thing I'm trying to work on about myself is becoming a more, for lack of a better word, I guess, nurturing person, a person who can sustain something over long periods of time. And right now that challenge looks like buying a bunch of plants and trying to keep them alive. And I say that because like I'm amazed at myself for keeping Hola Papi up and running as long as I have, and sort of like feeding it every week or every so often, because to me, I find it hard. I'm a very restless person. I'm a restless creative when it comes to my work, and I like to move from project to project very quickly. When I'm done with something, I'm done with it. Hola Papi has been in my life for like 3 years now or something like that, and that is bonkers to me. Like, that is a very long time. And I find that kind of dedication difficult.
I'm guessing you've never been married then.
Nope. I'm not. Even my romantic relationships tend to be, you know, pretty short, pretty intense. That's the kind of person I am. So it's amazing that Hola Papi is my longest running boyfriend at this point. Like, that's a long time. And I think when I look at like how I've been able to do that and why it feels so easy for me to do, it's because there are ways to keep it dynamic, keep it interesting. You know, the advice column is such a malleable format because it's just someone coming to you with the prompt you have to answer. It's almost like every single prompt is different, and you get to sort of try something new every single day. Like today, I did one about this guy who was having nightmares about Amy Coney Barrett invading his dreams and bullying him in his sleep. And it was like such a funny, such a like weird question to answer, and I decided to lean into the comedy aspect. Whereas like last week, somebody was like, hey, I just lost a family member, how do I grieve this? And I got to be, you know, a little more serious and sort of help them out in a way that I thought had more gravity to it. And so for me, it's a really nice format because I can sort of chameleon around and try different voices and try different approaches. It's really fun. But yeah, in terms of like when you're just beginning, I really do think it's a matter of building up your skills and then listening to your instincts in roughly equal measure. Because the thing is, like, I do feel like I can listen to my instincts a lot right now and come up with good stuff, but that's only because I've spent years and years and years practicing and building up the techniques and sort of learning the ins and outs of things. So at the very beginning, my instincts weren't great. My instincts were sort of like, I know what I want to write, I know what I want to say, I don't know how to say it. So I think that you should just read a lot, read a whole lot, share a lot, talk to a lot of people who are trying to do something similar to you. And when you're writing, try not to put too much pressure on yourself to make it the best thing you've ever written. Sometimes you just write to write, and that's fine, and it lowers the stakes, and you'll be surprised by the things you come up with when you're not pushing yourself to write the next great American essay.
Mm-hmm. I think it makes it more authentic. And I mean, your advice columns for me, I think I love the comedy aspect from it. Because in my mind, like advice columns were like for wine moms in the 80s. But when I started reading, and I like honestly, when I started reading yours regularly, I felt like a hipster in 2013 who discovered a vinyl. Like it was something so new. You know what I mean? So
thank you. That's a wonderful compliment.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, you probably get a lot of submissions, and there's probably some, really off the wall ones. Are there any ones that like you've ever just thought this is hilarious, but I cannot fucking write about this?
Oh my god, so many are like that. I get a lot of joke ones, which I love. I get ones from people who, because sometimes I'll screenshot the wildest ones, and people are aware of that, and they just want to see if they can like end up with a screenshot. I saw a really funny one a few weeks ago. Someone who used me as a sort of like missed connections forum to be like, I don't need advice. I need you to tell this person to give my book back because we went on a date. I gave him a book to borrow and he still has it and he's not returning it. So if you screenshot this and share it, he's a follower of yours. He likes your stuff. He'll know. Okay. And then I screenshot it and put it up. And then like the next day I get an email saying, thank you, I got the book back. It was so funny.
I love that.
Really silly ones. Really silly ones.
I bet. But okay, this next question I have, it's going to be a little controversial. So
okay, here we go.
If you don't want to answer, it's totally fine. But is space gay?
I think you will find that I do believe space is gay. That's my take. If someone asked me to explain myself, I would say, no, I'm at peace with the knowledge. I don't think, like, it's a vibe, it's a mood. Once it hits you, you get it, you know it.
Oh, space and astrology is the gayest thing. I have yet to find one homosexual who doesn't know their rising sign, their sun sign, their moon sign,
Well, the moon is a lesbian, canonically. I don't know if you saw that, like, NASA is teasing some moon news, and I'm trying so hard not to tweet, like, she's coming out.
I love it.
I would love it. What is your sign?
I'm a Pisces, but
I am too. Okay.
My moon is Aries, which explains more about me, I think, because a lot of Pisces I meet are sort of like these lyrical poet, imaginative people, and I feel that heavily. But then Aries is like, but what if we found a way to, become powerful with this? And that's how my brain works.
Oh, I'm a double water sign, and I was looking up like who had my birthday. So I got a range of Pisces. So I have Chuck Norris, so we have that kind of Pisces. And then, right? Okay, and then the next one is Osama bin Laden. So you have those.
Wow.
Yeah, two different ranges of Pisces. So I'm always confused with all my astral charts.
It sounds like one of those conservative, like, these are the two genders takes. Just like, Chuck Norris.
That in itself is just a meme. March 10th, if anyone wants to look that up.
You know who has my sun, moon, and rising at the same time is Walter Mercado. Which
really?
says a whole lot. It says a whole lot.
I love that. Did you watch the documentary about him?
Yes, so I'm doing some work for Netflix right now. So sometimes I watch stuff and I help them with things. And I watched Walter Mercado for the job, and I was like, wow, what a life, what a person. It's amazing to me, just like, bringing it back to queerness a little bit, that like he had so many straight cis fans, people who some oftentimes held like anti-LGBT views while at the same time loving this like gender bending, non-binary looking, over the top figure. It's always interesting to me how showmanship can sort of provide this like avenue for people to engage in queerness in a way that doesn't feel like that's what they're doing.
Oh, 101%. I didn't even know who Walter Mercado was before I watched it, and now I'm just like, I love it. Well, actually, okay, I take that back. On Drag Race, on the All Stars, God, Alexis Mateo did Walter Mercado, so JK. But I'm in love, and I want to like wear his clothes now because they're so colorful,
That,
like a drag queen.
That Halloween spider web thing. Ugh, so
yeah, I know. I'm like, I wish I would have been able to have like a conversation with this man. I cannot imagine like what he'll just casually say,
Yes, absolutely.
And when it comes to your like Mexican American heritage, it's super important to your work. And I was wondering, how did being that intersection of being queer and Mexican influence your art in general?
I think it influences it a lot. I think like I just love Mexican visuals, Mexican aesthetics, and I like to think that I would love it even if I wasn't Mexican myself. I think I'm just drawn to that sort of thing. I love the skulls, the florals, the ornate, dramatic kind of artistry that goes into a lot of the stuff that gets made in Mexico. But it's kind of strange for me. I don't know. I spent so much time of my life figuring out what that identity means and what it looks like and what my relationship to it is, because as a Mexican American, there's some weird politics involved with like, well, am I Mexican? Am I Mexican American? Am I nothing at all? What's going on? But I have found that my place where I really enjoy to be is in those in-betweens, not just with being Mexican American, but being gay, being a person. I really enjoy those sort of like gray areas, the weird waters where you can sort of like spend more time imagining things and defining things yourself rather than having those definitions given to you. I think that's my creative sweet spot, and I'm really grateful that not only am I there mentally, but in a weird way, I was born into it. It's kind of fun for me. But yeah, I have such a fondness for Mexican culture and Mexican food. Being in Mexico, I really want to be in Mexico City so badly.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like your content's extremely relatable, especially for like first generation and second generation Americans who might just feel estranged from their own culture due to the fear of assimilation. And like you've read about that in depth. And I loved your article about Julian Castro and how like his struggle to speak Spanish is more authentic than Beto O'Rourke or Cory Booker speaking Spanish.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I spend so much time thinking about language, obviously. I mean, probably a lot of people do, but I'm really fascinated by language and what it means and how we use it to create identities and realities. And it's such a faulty tool. It is so imprecise. And I think in the LGBT community, that's so evident. We're always trying to find better words. We're always trying to use terms that are more accurate. And we're always trying to include more people, but also make sure that we're holding on to, the historical significance of certain words. And we spend a lot of time debating, which ones to use, what to call someone. And I think that's healthy and robust and something I'm really happy about in terms of being part of the community. But it also, I think, really highlights the existential dread of language, where it's just like, oh my gosh, what an imperfect system. It's never going to include all the people I want to include, but it's what we've got. We have to use it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a more real experience. Those were all my questions, but yeah, thank you, JP, for all that. But by the way, I love it that I was like, we have a time limit. He's like, it's okay. I'm hungry. So
I'm so bad with my time lately. Like the days just slip through my fingers and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's evening. What happened? How did I
that's Corona in a nutshell. That is Corona in a nutshell.
I'm waking up at the most sporadic time. Sometimes I wake up at 7, sometimes I wake up at 10, and there doesn't seem to be rhyme or reason to it. It's just, I just like, okay, I'm going to sleep. What happens, happens. We'll find out together.
We are just vibing in 2020.
It's
Is it pretty locked down in New York?
It's a vibe-based experience. New York is kind of, it was calm for a while, and now I think we're starting to get more anxious again. It's been rough.
Yeah, I bet. In Oklahoma, like while we are in the red zone, we don't, like, half the people don't believe it. They're just not wearing a mask.
I was about to say, yeah, what's it like being outside right now? Or like when you go to the supermarket, or like when you have to be out and about, what does it look and feel like?
Like for me, okay, I live in like near like Midtown, like kind of on 10th. And so I'll be walking down to like Broadway, and like everyone walking usually doesn't have a mask, but at least in grocery stores, I would say most people have masks. I have yet to experience one of those like viral internet fights where someone's like, put on your mask. I've not yet experienced that, but I am waiting, because I feel like that's something that's going to happen. So
yeah,
and most places I go, JP, it's there's a sign on the door that says must wear mask, and then they cite the citation. The mayor made it a law that in this area it was, you have to wear the mask. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, there was actually an argument about Oklahoma in the early stages of the pandemic, where people were writing those personal essays about like, here's why I left New York, and somebody went to Oklahoma from New York and disparagingly was like, no one here knows that there's a pandemic happening, that no one's wearing a mask. And then the reaction was like, you were traveling. To like, it was just such a funny thing, because it was one of those putting down Oklahoma type things. Because like, oh, these ignorant hillbillies don't know that a pandemic is happening. And like,
honestly, that was true in the beginning. I mean, I'd go places and they were recommending, the CDC was recommending a mask,
right.
And wouldn't have it, or they wear it under their nose.
Yeah, do you remember that really early time in the pandemic where like the mask stuff was super unclear? It was like, I felt so guilty for like having one, because I'm like, am I supposed to donate this, or am I supposed to wear it? What's going on?
Horrible.
yeah, I remember when I first wore it, and I just felt like, wow, the world is really ending. And I don't care about wearing a mask. It was just weird that like now this is just a normal thing. You know?
It's weird.
Oh, have you done that thing where like you leave the house and you briefly like, oh crap, my mask, and you have to like go back and get it?
Oh yeah, all the time. Or I'll be trying to like carry multiple things, and I'm like, I need to put on my damn mask, and yeah. And I don't know. I'm gonna get one of your masks, because I need more stylish ones instead of the ones where I look like I'm about to go do surgery. So
I would love to just send you one. Just let me know which one you want. I will have one sent for sure.
They are super pretty. But yeah,
Ooh.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we're finished with all our questions. I always end on the awkward note. I literally do not end this fucking podcast. I always just like, I'll literally for every talk be like, yeah, cool. Well, thank you. And everyone's just like, yeah, exactly.
It's great to see you.
It's so I really hope that in the future I can come to Oklahoma and we can all hang. It would be wonderful. Hope that's in the cards one day.
Yeah, we can get Brahms together. It'd be lovely.
Yes.